Good morning. Welcome, everyone, as we gather. Welcome to this circle where life has grown green around us this week since we last saw one another. Welcome to this spiritual community that we create here together at SSUC. We welcome those of you who are gathered in this room and also those of you who are gathered in Saskatoon. Our SSUC Saskatoon family meeting this morning at St. Andrew's College, and others who will join us from Toronto later this week, and others joining us online wherever you find yourself this morning. We take this time with each other as time out of time to reflect on our lives and how we're living, and how we want to be in the gift of this day, this moment, in this place of being and belonging. Whoever we are, however we are, wherever we're coming from, whatever it is we're hoping for, whatever it is we're celebrating, whatever it is we are carrying, we're here with each other to support and inspire each other to live in ways that honor truth and love and integrity and acceptance. We humbly gather on this storied land that we're all privileged to call home, alongside those who are long in this land. And as we gather, we honor the confluence of legacies deeply woven into this land, traditional lands of Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, Nakota Sioux peoples, and adopted home to migrants of many generations from many different lands. We together seek to be more faithful as partners, all of us, members of Treaty 6. Together we strive to learn how to live more gently on this land and more tenderly with one another. We remind ourselves about those commitments as we sing together. We want to thank each of you for all the ways that you contribute to our health as a community, our life together, the ways that you support this community with your time and your talent, with your efforts, with your finances. And just a reminder that we have a number of ways that we can support this community financially. There's a donation box at either side of the door at the back. You can donate it online anytime. You can give a pre-authorized remittance, so each month a donation comes from your bank account, and you can support us each week by the purchase of grocery cards in the foyer. We also take time each Sunday to remind ourselves about the people hours that are required to be a spiritual community, and this week Charles is going to speak with us from the Spiritual Gatherings team.
Both our spiritual gatherings on Sunday and the other occasional gatherings are developed from your comments and suggestions, and the Spiritual Gatherings team thanks you for your feedback. Your observations help us to make the experience of gathering here in community to reflect on our life and our work valuable. We work with our ministry team to offer suggestions and to determine when one of us can take a leadership role. Our gatherings run as smoothly as they do through the gracious and talented volunteers who provide music, technical support, and childcare, and lead our operations, preschool, Kids Spirit, and Youth Cafe, and the tremendous efforts of the setup teams. We're also grateful for those who prepare and serve communion on Sundays, especially Malcolm and Mika Wharton, who faithfully provide the homemade bread. We welcome ideas for reflection themes and changes to the physical setup. You may see changes periodically as we test out how we can make our gatherings more welcoming to people who join us to celebrate, to commiserate, either in person or across distances. We're always interested in hearing what draws people to join us on a Sunday and keep attending. Ask someone who seems new to you at coffee time and let us know what we are doing that satisfies a spiritual hunger in them. We're also welcoming new members to our team for your ideas and for your support. So talk to me, or Nell in the red jacket, or Nancy. Thank you.
We light our candle with deep intention this day. To honor the light of wisdom that burns in the truth of our human experience, that speaks in art and poetry and theater and story, in all the ways that we search for meaning, and the wisdom that comes from Earth, our great teacher. We light this candle on Mother's Day in gratitude for the gift of life, for air and water and soil, for life that chirps and life that swims and life that crawls and life that flies and life that waddles and life that makes its way in its own way, for the spark of life in each expression of life. We light this candle to seek to awaken ourselves again to the grace of life and the responsibilities we have of being its human expression. Well, this is the time and this is the place, whether you're little or big or a child today or you were one day or you'd like to be again someday. Come and join us here. We're going to share a story with each other before our Earth Explorer program today. Come on up. Hi, everybody. Come on down. There's lots of room for all of us. Let's make room on the carpet. There we go. Great. Welcome, everybody. I want you to think for a minute and imagine your house or your apartment or the place where you live. And if you can, just close your eyes and count up how many toys you think are in your house. Just take a minute to see if you can count it up. How many toys do you think are in your house? Too much. Too much. Yeah, we all have a lot of toys. It's true. Boxes and boxes of them, right? And how many favorite toys do you think you have? Like, do you think there's a toy or two that you play with a lot of the time? You have a favorite one? Yeah? And some that you probably hardly ever play with, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, we have someone here today to teach us a little bit about enjoying a few toys. Enjoying a few things instead of a whole lot of stuff. It's called The Short and Incredibly Happy Life of Riley. And who is Riley? What is he? Yeah, he's maybe a mouse. Or, yeah, probably more likely a rat. I think that's it. I think you're right. So the pictures will be up on the screen. Everyone wants to live forever. They want to be healthy and happy. Some of these things are actually kind of difficult, but some of them are really easy, which might seem surprising because most people hardly manage any of them. At least not all of the time. And none of this bothered Riley. Riley'd been born happy. His earliest memory was being with his brothers and sisters and his mom in a big bed with plenty of food and no rain. He was always happy. He was even happy when he was asleep. He was beautiful. And everyone loved him. He was the best, and so were his brothers and his sisters and his mom. They were all the best. All Riley wanted was some fruit and maybe a couple of slugs on Tuesday or Friday or now and then. People, of course, want more than that, which is a shame because really it's about all you need. Apart from a cup of tea and some toast and maybe not the slug. People want double fudge, chocolate, caviar, sausage, gourmet, jumbo size, baby cow, sheep, chicken with extra thick whipped cream and MSG sauce burgers. Some of which is gross. Some of which is cruel. And most of which is unhealthy. Now, Riley, all he wanted was a little stick with a pointy end to scratch the part of his back he couldn't reach himself. And people, of course, want more than that. They want microwave, video, DVD, SMS, internet, big car, costs more than yours, gold, diamond, electronic, gigabyte, biggest, fastest, and smallest machines. And people, of course, should never be allowed to have sticks with pointy ends because we stick them at each other. When Riley looked in the mirror, he didn't think anything. There he was. Not too big, not too small, just himself. Riley. He liked what he saw. When people look in the mirror, they get very depressed. They want to be taller, shorter, thinner here, but not there so much. Bigger there, curlier, straighter, younger, older, less spotty, mustache, smooth, golden skin, suntan, gorgeous, irresistible, not bald, and famous in a painting. The only place Riley wanted to be was here, which he was, always. In a shoe. People, of course, want to be everywhere. We want to go to Seaside Ski Resort, Paradise, Dream Your World Away, Castaway Exclusive. You must be really rich if you can afford to come here. Plaza, luxury, get away from it all. Anywhere but here, theme park. Now, Riley fell in love with the very first girl he met. He thought she was perfect, and she was the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen, and they had lots of perfect children, and all of them lived happily ever after. Now, people, they fall in love all over the place. They fall in love with themselves and as many other people as they can. They want to spend the rest of their lives for at least a month with the most beautiful, funniest, cleverest, curviest, but not so clever as me, exciting. I wonder what I ever saw in him, her, my wife, husband, partner, dog doesn't understand me. Do you come here often? Everyone in the world. And one of the silly things about life is that people who spend so much time not eating what they really want in places where they don't really want to be, with people they don't really like, usually live quite a long time. Whereas Riley spent all of his time eating his favorite food in his favorite place with his favorite people, and he only lives a very short time. This is why it's never a very good idea for people to compare their lives to animals, because we'll just end up feeling depressed. When we realize that rats have a better life than we do, that's really, really sad. But the answer is really pretty simple. We just have to be happy with a whole lot less. Yeah. So maybe there's some toys that we're not using, we hardly ever play with, and someone else might just love and play with all the time. Or maybe there's some toys that we could share. Or maybe there's some things that we could learn from Riley. Today, with Andrea and Teresa, all of you have a chance to be Earth explorers, to go outside and to learn from Earth, our best first teacher. And so we invite you to make your way to the foyer, and if you've got a coat or a jacket there, and we're going to be just outside near the garden, and the kids program will end about 11:15, parents, so you can meet up in the foyer when we're finished. In the collection of writings we call the Newer Testament, we have 4 documents that were formed in the second half of the first century, many of which tell us stories about Jesus of Nazareth and stories that he was said to have told. Those we call parables, stories that never happened and are always happening. This parable of the rich man is found only in one of those 4 Gospels, in the Gospel of Luke, and it goes like this. Jesus said to them, "Take good care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." And then he told them a story, a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly. And he thought to himself, "What should I do? I have no place to store my crops." And then it came to him, "I know what I'll do. I'll pull down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I'll store all my grain and all my goods. And I'll say to myself, 'Oh, dear soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax and eat and drink and be merry.' But then he heard a voice say to him, 'You fool, even this night your life could be demanded of you. And all these things? What then?'" In this parable passed down to us from the first century Jesus tradition, may we find wisdom for our living. In 2007, a woman by the name of Annie Lennox began to do an educational program that has been very helpful about the situation with our ecology. And she first did a video called "The Story of Stuff," and I invite and encourage you to have a look at that. More recently, 5 years ago in 2013, she did a sequel to that story of stuff called "The Story of Solutions," where she does some teaching in a very simplistic but helpful way, I think, about the situation we currently find ourselves in. So we're going to take a little time, 9 minutes actually, to listen to Annie Lennox share the story of solutions. One of my earliest jobs was as a program director for a summer camp. We ran week-long camps for various age groups of kids for 8 consecutive summer weeks. Even when I think about it now, I feel exhausted. I was challenged to keep kids busy all day long, every day, 6 days a week in order to ward off homesickness, build skills, cultivate community, and nurture faith. It was no small thing. I think it was the hardest job I ever had. And one of the favorite games in my toolkit was a game called Bigger and Better. We would divide the kids into teams, give them some ridiculous item like a wooden spoon, and send them off to trade as many times as they could to obtain something bigger and better. And the team that would bring back the biggest and best thing, of course, won. I can imagine now how the cottagers around our property must have dreaded the day in the week that I landed on that activity. As teams of kids descended on our neighbors and hit up other staff members and presented their most recent trade and asked for something bigger and better. And although I hope they learned something about working together, mostly it was my self-interest in getting them to run off their energy, to race from one end of the property to the other, and to give me an hour to figure out what we were going to do next. And they would come back with all manner of things that they had traded for bigger and better. They got shovels and barbecues and pieces of furniture. And without realizing it, I was nurturing a dangerous and damaging view of the world. I was reinforcing that dominant narrative that what's bigger is better. And without realizing it, I was conscripting them in a game that really mirrored the consumer-oriented, capitalistic values that's at the heart of so much of what is threatening the well-being of our societies and our planet. Naively, I was inviting them to think like the farmer in that parable. Tear down the old barn, build a bigger one. Trade up. Bigger is going to win because bigger is better and bigger is best. In this week, when global experts have released a summary of their report to the United Nations on the relationship between economic development and the impacts on the natural world, we've been warned that more than 1 million species are threatened with extinction by a number of factors, most of which arise as consequences of our choices and of our irresponsibility as global citizens. The cover of Broadview magazine, the newly branded United Church of Canada Observer, confronts us with the same issue by inviting us to consider what our responsibility is toward the generations that are coming after us. There was this legendary farmer who had a windfall, record-breaking harvest. What to do with all that surplus crop? His first instinct is to tear down the old barn and build a bigger and better one to store all of his grains and goods. He's focused on his personal safety and security. Some would say he's a prudent businessman with a solid business plan. Others might say he missed an opportunity of a lifetime. The chance to be a game changer. The chance to subvert his self-interest and make a difference for his community. A chance to redeem his exploitation. The opportunity to consider the collective security, not the individual good. A golden moment in which he could have done something to provide daily bread for the many instead of trying to hoard up tomorrow's bread for his family. It was an opportunity to farm differently, to stop competing and to create a more cooperative system that could not only feed his family, but could also consider the needs of the land and to see the harvest as not belonging to him or his family, the harvest as being a good fortune that had fallen to the entire community. He could have put it in the service of others. This story isn't a critique of wealth, or it isn't saying wealth is evil. It's a story that emerges out of the context of first-century Roman-occupied Palestine. One only became a wealthy farmer in that world on the backs of others. One only acquired land by lining this pocket and that, positioning oneself to get another peasant's land when he got so burdened by debt and was made landless, you were there as a shark poised to snap it up. One became a rich farmer in this world by exploitation. And now with this windfall, he's got choices to make. He can perpetuate a system that has served him really well, or he can subvert it. He can take care of himself, or he can benefit an entire community with his windfall. What is he to do? With more than 7.7 billion of us trying to survive on this marble, there's no more room for this kind of foolish farming. There's no more room for this kind of greed or selfishness. There's no security in our bigger barn because it's built at the cost of endangering soil and water in ways that threaten us all, not just the species we've listed as endangered. The time for the foolish farmer is over. There is no future if we don't begin to see the ethical crisis of our economic policies, the unsustainability of the path of bigger and better barn building. Whether that takes the form of our land use or our resource extraction or our waste creation or our patterns of production or consumption, we have to find better and smaller ways to live. And whether we're in the ballot box or the grocery store or the job market or we're surfing the internet, somehow we have got to resist the choices that serve us in this moment and make the choices that are harder. They're more costly, they're less convenient, and they do less harm. Riley could teach our fictional farmer a thing or two. Because, you know, contentment is one of the greatest threats to bigger and better. Contentment endangers consumption. Advertising always has to breed discontentment, to make us discontented with what we have, so we're enticed to buy more, use more, waste more, have more. And that dire report this week, it also held out a little hope. That it's almost, but not quite, too late to make a difference. That if we will start now, at every level, from the personal, to the family, to the neighborhood, to the community, from the local to the global, we can still change the game. The goal of shifting our values and priorities, it's not quite too late to shift from this ecosystem that's been endangering so much to honoring the ecosystem that we're a part of, that's precarious balance allows all that is to be. And it starts with living the life of Riley. Not in the old sense of the word, not in that luxurious and carefree existence, but in the rat meaning of the phrase, of being contented with simple and small, of knowing when enough is enough. And living from that place, giving our creativity and our energy and our best efforts to the things that make life light enough, small enough, for our oceans to flourish and our rivers to be healthy and our air to be clean and our energy to be renewable and our land to be fertile for food and offer habitat for all the many creatures that are essential for ecological integrity. And that means we have to change our game. From the species who's created an economic model where bigger is better, where more is better, where we work each day to make two things extinct: selfishness and greed.
She won't come back again.
Before we share our closing words, we take this time in silence to offer our gratitude for the earth, gift of life, giver of life, mother of life. We offer our gratitude and we renew our commitment to live in more life-giving ways. In silence we pray. On this day when we celebrate the work of mothering, whether we have ever given birth to another or whether we have been raised by a mother, all of us are entrusted with the gift of nurturing, of mothering. And we get that gift from our mother, the earth, of whom we are born, with whom we live, by whom we are cared for, and for whom we care. We go on this day as nurturers of all life. We go in our commitment to honor the sacredness of our air and our water and our soil, the gift of fire of which we are born. We go to live faithfully and responsibly in relationship with our first relationship, our earth, our mother, our home.